The consistent theme of the best thumbnails that I've made myself and I've worked on with other people and then just YouTube as a whole is
thumbnails. I've heard people talk about these things non-stop since I started making videos a little over a year ago. They're the most important thing. They need to follow these guidelines, use those colors, maybe have some text, but not too much. And if I'm being honest with you, there is way more to making thumbnails than I thought. So what actually makes a good thumbnail? To answer that question, I called up some YouTubers and asked them about the best thumbnails they've ever seen, so we can come up with 3 themes that you can apply to your own videos. Here are the thumbnails. Testing if sharks can smell a drop of blood from Mark Rober. I pranked America's most racist man from Nico Amalana. I gave my 100 millionth subscriber an island from Mr. Beast. The biggest myth in education from Veritasium. The logistics of the International Space Station from Wendover Productions. And this is how airplane engines are tested from Beyond Facts.
I just came across it the other day and I'm always trying to pick up on just funny, quirky stuff that stands out. And that definitely stood out to me. It's a chicken getting thrown into an airplane engine. Makes absolutely no sense, but it absolutely killed it. I think it's got 5.1 million views now. It just makes you go, what the hell is going on, right? Do airplane engines get tested with chickens being thrown into it? Thinking about it, maybe. But yeah, it just is curiosity evoking. Even the chicken, I don't know how, but they've made the chicken look distressed. So it just looks entertaining and curiosity evoking.
All right, Jamie said something really important there. It's just curiosity evoking. A common thread between these thumbnails is that they evoke some sort of emotion from the viewer. Curiosity, fear, desire, any of the same emotions you would use when writing titles or ads or news headlines work here. That's theme number 1. A good thumbnail evokes emotion and or shows action.
the consistent theme of the best thumbnails that I've made myself and I've worked on with other people and then just YouTube as a whole is moments before something happens. So you're clicking to almost like play that moment. It's almost as if it was like a paused moment from the video. And I think that perfectly illustrates that with that thumbnail.
Ed also said something like that.
The thing I love about this, right, is it doesn't look photoshopped. So if you look at the light and how it's hitting both of them, the shadows are being cast in the same kind of place, and the daylight is hitting the top of their heads in kind of the same place. So it does feel like the sun is very high above them, right next to each other. Now, Nico's smart. I'm sure they would, if they were going to do this, they would have done all the lighting. But also I can see a very small tuft of his hair sticking out of the top that would have been very hard to Photoshop. Part of me hopes he did it next to him, which adds to it. But otherwise, it might be Photoshopped. But the thing about this one is, if it looked Photoshopped, it wouldn't have worked. What sets this apart as an entertainment thumbnail that works is, if you look at all the entertainment channels, they have very fake thumbnails, and they're supposed to look fake, right? So it wins for me because it's just perfect in terms of stakes, and you just don't question it. It just looks too good to be true. Well, it looks too good, not even to be true. It just looks perfect.
With the chicken thumbnail, it evokes curiosity. Why are they throwing the chicken? Is that really how they test airplane engines? And it shows action. They're literally throwing a chicken into a plane. Mark and Nico's thumbnails also open up a curiosity loop. What's going to happen to them? And as Patty said, they look like they could be literal moments taken from the videos. There's more to those thumbnails, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now you may be thinking, Jay, this is great and all, but I don't make IRL or entertainment videos. I make tutorials or listicles or interviews. All of this still applies. It's just the execution is a little bit different. Look at this thumbnail from Brett Malinowski. These 4 AI tools will make you superhuman. This is a listicle video where Brett doesn't leave his desk, but the thumbnail still shows action. How do you show someone being a superhuman while sitting at a desk? Add a motion blur to make it look like he's going fast. The title is what evokes emotion here, desire. And that video is the second highest performing video on the channel, so it's a pretty objective success. Now with interviews, you can accomplish this in a couple of ways. You can use text on the thumbnail that evokes emotion, and you can make sure that the facial expression looks natural, so that the thumbnail itself looks like it was taken right from the conversation while complementing the title. An example of how we applied these lessons on this channel is my thumbnail for my interview with John Ushai. We wanted this to look like a pause moment from the video where John, an ex-YouTube employee, was revealing secrets. That's action. The not so secret fact about this thumbnail is that it actually isn't a pause moment. Although the facial expression is from the video, the hand, flash drive, mic, and background are not, but it looks like they could be, and that's the point. That video with John was a 2 out of 10 and is now the 4th highest performing video on the channel. Again, another objective success. Now, the actual secret to this thumbnail is that it was inspired by one of John's own highest performing videos. Ex-YouTube employee exposes how to grow YouTube channel. That brings us to our second theme. A good thumbnail takes inspiration from formats and designs that have been proven to work. Now, this does not mean just replacing someone's face or directly copying assets. That's bad. But taking the format and breaking down the reasons why that thumbnail worked and applying it to your channel, your niche, or your story, that's good.
There's a lot of people who have done like helicopter island-esque thumbnails. Yes Theory did another great one where it's like them, a vantage point, and a helicopter. And I knew, I was like, I'm never going to give away an island, but I do these interviews with creators. I want to do one in a helicopter. I feel like if you lead with packaging, but then you could find an idea that really like goes above so it doesn't feel like clickbait, then maybe that's something worth pursuing. And a lot of people would say, you adapted that thumbnail. And I absolutely did. But the story, I think, was fundamentally different. I didn't give away an island. It wasn't a subscriber giveaway. It was going down a rabbit hole and a tour with a creator. So that thumbnail helped bring about an idea that now has 2.3 million views on my channel.
In my interview with John, he talks about the origin of this thumbnail being a photo shoot Casey Neistat did for YouTube Rewind a while back. He was revealing a play button from his jacket. John took that idea and turned it into the thumbnail where he is revealing a manila folder full of YouTube secrets that he's going to share in the video. I'm using the specific word reveal here because that is the aspect John borrowed from Casey's photo shoot, and then we borrowed it from John's thumbnail. That's the through line between these three different images. So to do that without just directly copying John, we needed to make this fit our video, a remote interview. We made the thumbnail look like a screenshot from a remote recording and added the reveal action of John showing a flash drive that contains secrets he's going to present to the audience. You wouldn't look at these two thumbnails and think ours was a ripoff, but that's where we found our direct inspiration. Another quick example is the thumbnail for my interview with YouTube scriptwriter George Blackman. The format inspiration for this was from Wired's Accent Expert Breaks Down Actors' Accents series. It's a very simple format. An expert on one side with an expression that looks like they're mid-critique and a visual reference to what they're critiquing that is recognizable to the target audience. So let's throw a picture of George mid-sentence to the left side, put in a visual of one of the videos he has written that includes someone who is very recognizable to our target audience in the top right, and then add a third panel at the bottom right to visually reinforce that this is about script writing. Boom, now we have a new thumbnail format in our style for our audience, built off of something that we already know works. That video massively outperformed our expectations and is currently our 6th highest performing video on the channel. Again, an objective success. Reusable formats are incredibly common across YouTube. Face and text for interviews. I ask some category of person a specific question. Before and after comparisons, conversation bubbles. By no means is that a full list, but you will see this kind of thing all across YouTube no matter the niche. Now, we're going to talk about the big benefit of creating original concepts and what goes into a good concept in just a second. But first, listen to Ed talk about how he found success by ripping off a format for his channel.
So I ripped this off a while ago on my channel. I did amazingly well. I can't quite believe how well it worked. The idea is you challenge the status quo. So what you do is you hold up a sign and you put something on it that people believe to be true and you challenge that. In this example, he says, you are not a visual learner. Everyone gets told they're a visual learner, I'm pretty sure. So I saw that and I was like, everyone's always told me I'm a visual learner. And then I read the title, The Biggest Myth in Education. And I'm like, what? Have they been lying to me? Did my teachers lie to me? Anyone can apply this to their channel. So I did it. I put something like videos don't grow channels. It just kind of challenges what people believe, does grow a channel, releasing more videos. And the video got 900,000 views or something, which in my niche is a lot. You can apply it all over, and it's set in this really simple background. It looks like he's out almost protesting. Again, seems really authentic.
It might seem simple enough, but the way Ed broke down why the Veritasium thumbnail worked is really important. And I say that as someone who got it wrong with this exact thumbnail format. We actually used Ed's thumbnail as inspiration for one of ours, but it didn't work nearly as well, and here's why. Both the Ed and Veritasium thumbnails use what's written on the sign to challenge the status quo, which is the driving force behind the viewer's click. On our thumbnail, we just put, I'm exhausted. We didn't open up any loops or challenge the status quo at all. Our intention was for it to be an emotional appeal that was relatable to the audience. But in hindsight, it wasn't a very strong one, and the video performance showed that. The last thing Ed said about the Veritasium thumbnail was, it looks like he's out almost protesting. Again, seems really authentic. Does that remind you of anything we talked about earlier in the video?
I just love how, although it's a very ambitious thumbnail, it's still something that anyone could make. There's not like a huge amount of editing. There's not like, lots of color correction going on. It's just a really simple image that is all about the psychology of the click as opposed to making something that just looks beautiful. I could make that thumbnail in 5 minutes. And sometimes the best thumbnails are the ones that could be made really quickly because the actual concept itself is just so interesting.
Although it's very ambitious, it's still something that anyone could make. It's all about the psychology of the click. That's the third theme, and it really encapsulates everything we've talked about. The concept is more important than the actual design. Listen to Patty talk about where he thinks most people would have gone wrong with Mark Rober's shark concept.
What I think most people would have done to just completely mess up this concept is they would have taken the face and made it really bright and full of expression and maybe a big like Mr. Beast-esque smile. They would have made the shark look really clear because they'd be worried people might not be able to see the shark or it doesn't pop out from the background. But really the beauty of this thumbnail is the fact it feels natural. The lighting is really natural. You see the ripple reflections on top of the shark, the light coming through the water on top of Mark's cap. These are little things that people really overlook. Like people would end up just photoshopping a version of Mark just in his bedroom with his fingers up and use that as the base for the image, whereas clearly Mark actually went underwater, maybe in his pool or whatever, to actually put this piece together.
Your thumbnail doesn't necessarily have to have a pause moment, especially if you're making entertainment videos. There's a ton of examples of very fake-looking IRL or video essay thumbnails that perform really well. Mr. Beast, the largest creator in the world, being one of them. And just like earlier when we talked about action and emotion, you better not say, "But Jay, I don't make IRL or entertainment videos." That's not the point. Mark's thumbnail, Veritasium's thumbnail, Nico's thumbnail, they all demonstrate that a thumbnail that relies on the psychology of the click more than the design works, and it works really well. Look at these interview thumbnails. Face, text, that's it. The text is doing the heavy lifting to get the viewer's attention on the homepage, while the facial expression is there to match the emotion of the text and title. This thumbnail from April Lynn Alter, just a picture of her looking up against a white wall, a screenshot of an editing timeline, and some text that complements the title. 256,000 views, and she has around 15,000 subscribers. Almost any one of Ali Abdaal's thumbnails, just pick a random one. It probably follows the same idea. So the next logical question is, what makes a good concept? This is by no means a complete list, and there are always going to be exceptions. But let's talk about a couple basic things you can start implementing today. The most obvious and most important thing is that your thumbnail has to stand out against the other videos on the homepage. Remember the very first thing Jamie Rossthorne said in this video about that thumbnail of the chicken being thrown into the airplane engine?
I just came across it the other day and I'm always trying to pick up on just funny, quirky stuff that stands out. And that definitely stood out to me. It's a chicken getting thrown into an airplane engine. Makes absolutely no sense.
He chose that thumbnail as one of the best because of its ability to stand out and get his attention. Yeah, it stands out because it's silly, but it also does something else. It follows the 3-element rule and has a very clear focal point that captures your attention. This is something I learned in Patty Galloway's Accelerator, which is great, by the way, highly recommend. It says that there should be no more than 3 focus areas in a thumbnail. Not necessarily objects or things, but focus areas. This means when a viewer looks at your thumbnail, there should be no more than 3 areas they have to look at. With the chicken thumbnail, we have plane engine, chicken, and person with a vest. With Mark Rober's thumbnail, we have Mark, blood, and the shark. With Veritasium's thumbnail, we have him and the sign. And to give an interview example, here is my interview with Jenny Hoyos. We have Jenny, the text box, and the studio as a background. Yes, there are lots of things in the background, books, a hat, a TV screen, clothes rack, but everything blends together into one continuous thing. There are plenty of websites where you can test how your thumbnail will look on the YouTube homepage across different devices. We use one called thumbnailpreview.com. It's great, you just upload the thumbnail, put in the title, and then it shows you how your thumbnail looks in comparison to real videos on the homepage. There have been plenty of times where this tool has influenced revisions on one of our concepts. Earlier, I mentioned that there is a benefit to going outside the box and creating original concepts. Well, making something fresh that people haven't seen before is a very effective way to stand out. like this thumbnail from Wendover Productions.
The thumbnail itself looks like a package of astronaut food. It has the creases on the edges that make the border look realistic, and then the plastic is all crinkly, and then the actual text of the thumbnail is on there. I don't know if it's the best thumbnail ever in terms of curiosity gap, but in terms of design, I've never seen a thumbnail that has impressed me as much as that. So like it literally looks like an object sitting on your computer screen, whereas everything else looks like your brain tells you, okay, that's a box that YouTube has created and the thumbnail's in the box. With this, it's like, oh no, that's just a rectangular package of space mashed potatoes. And I could eat those space mashed potatoes right now.
Original concepts like this subvert your expectations of what a thumbnail is supposed to look like, and they stand out because of that. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean just making something completely new for the sake of being original. Clearly, the package of astronaut food was well thought out and executed perfectly, which is why it worked. Dodford has been approaching his thumbnails this way and has seen a lot of success, racking up about 20 million views and 170,000 subscribers since January of 2023. You've probably seen people all over YouTube start to use his style. Netflix actually just released a poster that is pretty close to his Donald Glover thumbnail, which is wild. And his thumbnails, as well as the others mentioned in this video, aren't the only reason for a video's success, but they play a huge part. If no one clicks on your video, it's just not going to do well from the very beginning. If there's one point you need to take away from this video, is that the concept is so much more important than the visual design. To make a good thumbnail, you don't have to be an artist or a Photoshop wizard. You just have to nail the concept, which comes down to understanding why a viewer is going to click. If you don't do that, your thumbnail is not going to do its job.
The thumbnail's job is to get you to read the title, and the title's job is to get you over the line so that you go into the video. And you've got to make people care about each one in that order.
If you want to learn more about titles, the other half of packaging, watch this interview with Jake Thomas from Creator Hooks, where we talk about the psychology of writing clickable YouTube titles.